Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to be doing some more online tourney results, looking at the meta, looking at what decks are doing well right now, and seeing if there's any crazy rogue decks that are doing well. Unfortunately, there were no big late night tourneys last night. Recording this on a Wednesday, usually big late night tourneys are on the Tuesday. There was one late night tournament, however, the late night 131, but unfortunately there wasn't another late night tourney like there usually is, so we're unable to have two late night tourneys to look at because TCG Live was bugged, and that's 2 weeks in a row now without a late night tournament to look at, which is unfortunate. I mean, there's one, but there's always like the late night tourney that happens at like 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but we're going to take a look at some of the decks here. This is the final video to look at here going into Pittsburgh, as these are all decks that could potentially make an impact at the Pittsburgh Regional Championships this weekend. If y'all are new to the second channel here, make sure to subscribe down below, leave a like in the video if you're going to enjoy, and all of that good stuff. And let's take a look. So we got the discard pile weekly. All these tournaments had a decent bit of players, like they had over 100 people. So these are like actually decent sized tournaments. We'll start off with discard pile. The winning deck, of course, was none other than Lost Tina, which is basically at this point I guess it is the BDIF. We do have Mew doing pretty well, and I'm going to kind of keep praising Mew, but this is a different kind of Mew deck. All right, never mind. This is not. I thought it was going to be like some Mew with Fusion, but no, it's an Elselgor build of Mew. So yeah, the idea behind the Elselgor is that it does hit Charizard EX for weakness when it moves to the active spot. You do have to play and you have to play 2 damage mods in order for it to KO. But this build does play a super effective Glasses to hit Charizard for weakness. I mean, honestly, like if you're playing Mew to Pittsburgh, I personally don't think you need to play the Accelgorp. Like, I don't think Charizard is popular enough to respect, and I still think that Mew can actually beat Charizard even without a Grass Attacker. But the Accelgorp does give you that little bit of extra edge, I guess you need into winning that game. So more credit to them. Did they even play against Charizard? They didn't even hit a Charizard deck. Look at that. They didn't even play against Charizard. See, it's like the Accelgor might not even be necessary. I guess it's a decent one-prize attacker, though, in like Gardevoir matchups, which we do see a Gardevoir here. This one does play the Sky Seal Stone. Double Worker, too. Wow. A lot of stadiums, actually. We got Double Worker, League Headquarters, Artisan, Collapsed, and a Palpad. So really not trying to lose to Path. I kind of respect it. Honestly, having like 5 stadium outs, make it 6 if you put 1 worker back with a Palpad. I don't hate it. The only downside is this list does not play Professor's Research, but it is similar to Tord's list with the double reversal. Actually, it's not that similar to Tord's list. I got a comment last video saying, this is similar to Tord's list, and there's like 5 cards different. But yeah, the Sky Seal Stone is interesting. I don't hate Sky Seal right now because it does allow you to take out that extra prize on a VSTAR, and VSTARs are really popular right now, right? Giratina, Arceus, Lugia, you know, just to name a few. So, don't hate it. I can see Sky Seal Stone being in Guardy. We got Miraidon Flaffy doing well. We do see the Mahone Miraidon list. It is a little bit different, though. We do see the Arvins were cut in favor of more draw for more Iono. There is a Beach Court instead of 4 Path. There's 1 Beach Court in the deck. Not a terrible card to play, I guess. There's no Switch cart, though. There's a Drapion. I don't hate Drapion. I actually, you know what? I think Miraidon could play Drapion right now. Well, you do have Path and Raichu, which a lot of the time can just carry the game by itself. I guess that little bit of extra help against Mew does go a long way. And I expect Mew to be popular in Pittsburgh. We got a Single Strike Lugia doing well. Single Strike Lugia is in a really good spot right now, I think. The deck is really solid. The only thing it really loses to is kind of itself and like bad draws, but as long as the deck doesn't have those like typical Lugia draws, the deck's kind of just broken, right? It's just basically your most straightforward, you know, Lugia deck. It does big damage. Tyranitar is really good. The only thing I don't like about this deck, I don't know if Single Strike Lugia is like great into Gardevoir. That's the one thing that throws me off about playing the deck is, like, it's really good against Mew, but, like, against Guardy, and might struggle, in my opinion, anyways. We got, of course, Rapid Strike doing well. Rapid Strike is another deck that seems to be really good for Pittsburgh, because Rapid Strike is very, very strong right now in the meta with all the different decks going around. The only deck that this deck really has to fear are maybe the Lugia variants, especially if they have the Radiant Serena, and also the Mew decks. But Rapid Strike seems to beat a lot of other decks. I mean, it can beat Lost Zone decks. I think Rapid Strike actually has a very good matchup against Charizard, because basically you can play the Charizard matchup by, like, not even... You don't take... Like, if you can just... You can win the game with, like, 1 Yoga Loop. You don't even have to play that matchup out and take prizes. You can just make them do 180 a turn. But yeah, I think Rapid Strike's a great deck for Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a deck that nobody's really going to expect or tech for or prepare for, and then all of a sudden, Rapid Strike's going to have a pretty good day one. I'm just going to call it right now. I'm going to call it how it is. because we do have another Lugia in top 8. Single Strike Lugia, this one does not play Radiant Serena. Interestingly, both these Lugia lists have cut the Cobalion out. So we've seen the Cobalion in the Lugia decks because it allows Tyranitar to KO a Charizard EX with 3 Single Strike energy. But we see this build does not play the Cobalion. So we'll have to see if any other Lugia lists here in these tournaments are playing the Cobalion. Final deck in top 8 we have is Gardevoir. Once again, pretty similar to Tord's list. No Lumineon, no Forest Seal Stone, but Guardy being Guardy. It does have double Worker, though. Just playing that double Worker. And we'll look at some of the decks outside here. We do see a Palkia outside. We do see that Palkia Shampoo deck. This is a deck that nobody's really talking about right now, and I feel like Palkia is in a decent spot in the meta right now. And this deck is actually still good, this Palkia Shampoo deck. It's very strong, very straightforward. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good play for Pittsburgh, too. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple Palkias do well at Pittsburgh, because it's no surprise that the deck is still kind of holding on. In the meta. We see some more Guardies. There's an Arc deck here at 4 and 2. I guess we can take a look at that. Yeah, it's an Arceus Xianpao box deck, I guess. It's more of a straight Arceus deck, but it does have a couple tricks in here. It does play that Xianpao, which honestly Xianpao and Arceus makes sense. You can, Trinity Nova energy into play and then use Poppy or Melanie to, or I guess you can't Melanie to Xianpao, but no Raihan actually. I was gonna say you could Raihan a Xianpao, because you can build up a Xianpao in one turn and all the energy you put into play the Arceus can get discarded with Hailblade. Interesting concept. We'll move on to the next tournament here. The Late Night 131. This one was a big tournament. It had like 291 players or something in it. The winner is actually Sagen Park here with the Miraidon deck. Sagen Park did play Miraidon to Worlds and did win a tournament with it. And yeah, we do see Sagen's Miraidon deck. This one is not playing the Path to the Peak. This is a toolbox deck because it has a lot of different Pokemon in it. It's got Lumineon, Drapion, the Flying Pikachu, Zapdos. It's not playing any paths. That's like the big takeaway from this build is no path. The Path Miraidon deck here is not the one that won the tournament. It does have Iono and Penny. The Penny's interesting for sure. I actually don't hate Penny and Miraidon. It's not a bad idea. But yeah, no, I like Sagen's list. Pretty strong deck. Again, I think Miraidon's going to have a decent showing at Pittsburgh because it's been figured out and the deck's pretty respectably good. The second place deck was the Palkia deck, which Palkia can actually beat Miraidon. Basically, you just have to take the first knockout. But yeah, Palkia getting second is not surprising. I think this deck is still very strong in the format right now. And I think it's kind of an underrespected, underutilized deck right now. So to see Palkia do this well is no surprise. Because again, I think this deck is actually pretty decent in the meta. It just kind of gets the job done. And this is, I think, the first time in this series since Obsidian Flames come out where we've seen Palkia get these good results. We got a Xianpao Baxcalibur deck, so 2 different water decks here in top 4. This one is Xianpao Baxcalibur with the Palkia. We've seen the Palkia actually be a little bit more popular now in Xianpao over the Arceus VSTAR. And I guess the reason for that is Palkia is just a really good attacker to have. I mean, it was originally what everyone was playing in their Xianpao decks was Palkia, right? So it kind of makes sense. Next deck we got is Lost Tina in top 4. I mean, yeah, it's Lost Tina. We don't really have to go too in-depth about Lost Tina because, I mean, there's just like always going to be Lost Tina decks. Another Miraidon build. This one is the Miraidon Path build. It does play Radiant Greninja, though, and opted out for a third path. Actually playing a lot of 3-of supporters. Playing 3 Iono, 3 Research, 3 Judge, and 3 Boss. It's an interesting count, for sure. A lot of 3s in the deck, actually. A lot of 3s. 3 Path, 3 Brave Charm. I like triple Brave Charm. Honestly, the more Bravery Charm, the better. I don't hate it. It's actually Shintaro's list, believe it or not. That was Shintaro. I didn't even see that. That's interesting. Shintaro usually does good in these online tourneys, I find. We got another Rapid Strike deck doing well. Again, Rapid Strike is a very strong play for Pittsburgh. It's not a deck that I'm considering playing, but it is something that I've looked into, like, maybe I'll play Rapid Strike for Pittsburgh. I think it's honestly a good deck. Like, if you just know how to play it well, and if you know your matchups, you know what you're supposed to do with certain turns, and if you play well enough, I think Rapid Strike is a very good play for Pittsburgh. And seeing it have these good online tourney results isn't surprising. We even see another Rapid Strike deck behind it. Again, Rapid Strike being really good right now. This one does play Squawkabilly. We're seeing the no respect for Mew in these lists. And, I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to play Rapid Strike, playing no respect to Mew is fair. As long as you literally just don't hit, like, 3 Mews in day 1, you should be okay, right? Because I think Rapid Strike is good into mostly everything. I mean, the Lugia matchup is not favored, but the Lugia matchup isn't as bad as the Mew matchup, in my opinion. So, yeah, it's no surprise we see the Rapid Strike deck doing well. And we got another Arc deck here in top 8. This one's Arceus Regigigas. Now, I like it when spicy decks do well. And the idea of this deck's actually kind of cool. So, It's a colorless Arc deck because it is playing the double Charon's Care. Essentially, you're just trying to be very tanky and healy with this deck. I mean, healy's not even a word, but you get what I mean, right? You're basically just trying to tank and heal with Charon's Care and Bibarel. We do see the double Pal Pad, and I kind of like this build. I think I saw this on Twitter. The person who played it tweeted out. It's a really cool concept. For sure. Now, I like seeing these spicy Arc decks do well. Regigigas is a card that never really has taken off since it came out. And, I mean, this deck could have been actually really good if memory capsules in the format. It would have been very similar to, the Gyarados VMAX decks of the old days. But Gigas VSTAR getting top 8 is nice to see. It puts a smile on my face. I mean, we've seen similar concepts, too, with, Arceus Slacking. But now we're just seeing it go straight to Gigas over the Slacking, which Gigas is a bit more bulkier than Slacking. It's got more health. It doesn't do as much damage, but it does have more health, and that can go a long way in the format. The downside of Gigas, though, is that it can't... Actually, I guess it's got 2 Jet Energy and 2 Switch. Because the downside of Gigas is that... I guess we can pull it up. If you use its Giga Impact tech, you can't do it again next turn, so you have to move the Gigas somehow, and that's the only thing I can see about this list not being good, is that you have to move the Gigas. But I do like the list. I think it's a really cool concept, and these more straightforward Arc tank heal decks are really, really cool, so to see somebody get top 8 with it is awesome to see, and I don't know, I'm kind of interested in the list. I guess, actually, I kind of want to see what they played against, to be honest. Okay, wow, they actually hit some good matchup. The one matchup they lost, which is pretty easy to, lose to, is the Rapid Strike deck, because that doesn't have Dunsparce, but beating everything else is pretty impressive. I mean, actually tying to Rapid Strike is good. But it did take down a Mew, beat a Lugia Single Strike deck. But you can see a lot of these matchups here were, very much path kind of carried, so that's really cool. So, yeah, I like that deck idea. The Gigas Arceus deck's kind of sick. Outside the top 8, we got 2 Mew decks. We see a double Turbo Mew deck outside of top 8. Double Turbo Mew, I think, is actually good right now because nobody's really playing Spiritomb, which makes Double Turbo Mew actually good again. That's kind of my opinion. And then, of course, we got the... where's it at? We got Fusion Mew just below it. Once again, Fusion Mew is also pretty good. The nice thing about Mew right now is there's 2 different ways to play it. And going into Pittsburgh, I think Mew will be popular in Pittsburgh. I think you can kind of go either way with your Mew build. I think both Double Turbo and Fusion Mew are both actually, played. They're both playable decks. I should look at this Lost Zone deck here. I'm curious. It's Turbo. Okay, I thought it was, a cool, spicy take. Moving on to the deck out Monday tourney. The winner was the Single Strike deck, and this one went 8-0. And actually, it's just a very straightforward Single Strike list here. No Cobalion. So this is the 3rd Lugia deck we've looked at in the video where they are not playing the Cobalion to tech for the Charizard. But to be fair, we haven't even looked at a Charizard deck yet, so Charizard is definitely falling off enough where I don't think you need to worry about it anymore. I guess in an online tourney, though, you'll hit one maybe in the early rounds, but as you progress forward, there's less and less Charizard. But, yeah, this could be a pretty good 60. I mean, if you're looking to play Single Strike Lugia to Pittsburgh, I think this 60 is actually pretty solid. The double basic, Single Strike attackers are really good right now. The double T-Tar. You don't need Urshifu anymore because Urshifu is not that good at the moment. The only thing I would maybe change about this list is playing the Cobalion. Radiant Serena is the one card I don't know if Lugia needs to play right now. I know it helps a little bit against Lost Box, and obviously it's really good against Rapid Strike, but I think it's a cuttable card. But it is kind of like playing the Spiritomb. We actually see it's Andrew Hedrick who won the... I didn't even see that, Andrew Hedrick's list, so it's a pretty good 60. We got another Guardy list here. Again, Guardy's pretty good for Pittsburgh, too. We got Lost Zone, and this one, it looks like it is Turbo Lost Box with a Guacomo and a Spiritomb. Interesting. So instead of playing Drapion V, they opted for Guacomo and Spiritomb in the deck. Spiritomb is, okay in Lost Box because it does help against Lugia and Mew a little bit. I don't know if it helps enough, though. That's the thing. I feel like Drapion is always the better card to play in Lost Box. Well, actually, this deck's playing Path, too. What the heck? I didn't even see that. The more I look at the deck, the more I just saw more random stuff. I mean, Kokomo, Path to the Peak in Turbo Lost Box is very interesting. I don't hate it. I mean, Path isn't Tina, but Tina can play Path. Turbo Lost Box playing Path is definitely very interesting. We got a Rapid Strike deck here. Again, we're seeing a lot of Rapid Strike do well right now, and that's no surprise, because Rapid Strike is shaping up to be a pretty good play going to Pittsburgh. We got another Lost Tina. We haven't been looking at as much Lost Tina as I expected, which is nice. We see more Guardy here. Guardy starting to slowly make that comeback in the meta. Because I think last video we weren't even looking at as many Guardy. But now people are like, oh, Guardy's good. We see the Xianpao deck with the 1-1 Palkia and the 1-1 Pidgeot. But this is a nice Xianpao list. Pidgeot's, not the greatest card to play, in my opinion. I still think Bibarel might be better Because Pidgeot is good, but it's not going to be as good as Bibarel when you're playing its Path. But the Pidgeot does make sense in some regards. But I don't hate this list either. The Shampoo Palkia Pidgeot list seems decent enough. And if you really want to try out the Pidgeot, go ahead. I think it's an okay inclusion. But I think Bibarel is honestly better. We got more Guardy. This one is very interesting. Triple Worker. Holy smokes. The all basic energy and triple worker is definitely an interesting way to play Guardy, but I don't hate the triple worker. Again, more outs to stadiums makes sense. Like Gardevoir playing like 5 stadium bumps right now makes a lot of sense. See more Shampoo outside of the top 8. Again, we see the Pidgeot. This one's actually double Pidgeot, so not the 1-1, but the 2 Pidgeots, which is interesting for sure. We see more Guardy here outside top 8. Yes, once again, triple worker Guardy. That's pretty cool. We can look at this Lugia deck. We see a colorless Lugia deck doing well. Now, colorless Lugia, in my opinion, is another very strong deck. I think a lot of people are kind of like, isn't it just worse single strike? And to that I say no. Colorless Lugia plays very differently to single strike, in my opinion. Now, there are a couple ways to play it. There is the Seniors Division World Championship list that played Slackings and Path, which I do like that list. I think that list actually might be better. But this more like straightforward, no Path build with double Snorlax and Radiant Charizard isn't terrible either. Personally, I'm not a fan of the Radiant Charizard because it's actually really hard to use unless you bench it early on. It's actually kind of hard to use, right? Because in order to attack with it, if you have to play it from your hand on your bench, you have to waste an energy to go into it because you can't put Jet Energy on it because you can't put Luminous Jet on a Pokemon because Luminous would get canceled because there's a Jet Energy on. So I'm not a big fan of the Radiant Charizard in the Colorless Lugia deck. I think Colorless Lugia is still a very strong deck right now, and it's something that I am, really fond of at the moment. But I don't know, man. The Charizard build doesn't seem the most optimal way to play it. I don't think it's a bad build by any means, but I don't think the Charizard is as necessary. Like, I don't know. It's cool, and it's an interesting inclusion. We got the Pumpkin ADL free. This one was a big tournament. This one had a lot of players, too. The winning deck was Gardevoir here. Guardy taking down the tournament. Triple Worker Guardy, once again, by James Cox. He's obviously a really good player. And actually, in second place, we see another Colorless Lugia deck. Now, this one is another different take on the build. This one is a bit different than the other build because we do see the Echoing Horn and the Charizard and Lost Vacuum. But again, Colorless Lugia is a strong deck, but I'm not as sold on the Charizard as most people are, but I can understand why people are playing the Charizard, but I'm not as sold on it. But I do like this build of Colorless Lugia once again. I'm just not a fan of the Charizard, but I do like Colorless Lugia doing well, and it is cool to see the deck do well. Because in third place, we see Xianpao Palkia with the Bravery Charm and a Worker. I actually don't hate Worker in Xianpao. Not a terrible idea. Not a bad idea. There's like 4 stadium outs, so really don't hate it. We see another Colorless Lugia deck in top 4. Wow. Again, Colorless Lugia with the Charizard. Not the way that I think is the best way to play it, but to see 2 of them in top 8 here is definitely interesting. It does give the deck some legitimacy, in all honesty. It does give the deck some legitimacy. Yeah, it's cool to see. Colorless Lugia is just a solid deck, in my opinion, right now. We see Fusion Mew, kind of the old school build with the Ice Cube and the Meloetta. It actually playing the Oricorio, too, so a lot of different basics here. But we do see the double Path and the Lost City. So yeah, kind of an old schooly. Well, I say old school, but like like the world's meta Lugia. We actually see an Arc Goo in top 8. Now, Arc Goo's a deck that's also been kind of getting a little bit of buzz right now. Goodra's not a bad card in the meta at the moment due to the fact that it's very bulky and it can obviously wall off a lot of decks, which is really good. It's an interesting take on the Arc Goo deck, and I am interested to see if this deck can maybe make any waves, because obviously Arc Piles right now are really kind of falling off a little bit due to the popularity of like Shampoo and Giratina, but Arc Goo, obviously, this is kind of similar to Arctina, where it does have the Judge, the Iono, the Path, the Bibarel engine, not playing the Duraludon build, where you're not playing any, like, draw engine, you're just relying on, like, Lumineon, maybe, and, like, your draw supporters, but Arc Goo seems like an okay deck, so I'm interested to see if anybody does well at Pittsburgh with Arc Goo. We see another Lost Zone deck in top 8. This one is another spicy deck. It's an Earth and Seal Stone Lost Zone engine deck. Now, this is where the spice begins. That's some spice for sure. Lost Zone, Earth and Seal Stone. So the idea behind this deck is it's just a Sableye Cram deck. Those are your only like two main attackers. It does have the Greninja, does have that Mimikyu. The idea behind the Mimikyu though, and the Earth and Seal Stone. I guess we can read Earth and Seal Stone. I know a lot of people might not know what this does. Put damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon V until its remaining HP is 100. So if you're playing against a deck that puts a lot of Vs in play, like Lumineon, Mew's another big one. Probably there for the Mew matchup specifically. But there's a lot of matchups where the opponent will put a ton of V Pokemon in play, right? And then you Star Gravity. But you can use Star Gravity with the Mimikyu V. Now, Mimikyu V has the ability Dummy Doll. When you play from hand on your bench, you can prevent all damage done to Mimikyu V by your opponent's attack. So, effectively, you get a free turn to do Earth and Seal Stone without having Mimikyu take any damage. And that is the concept behind playing the Mimikyu Earth and Seal Stone combo. It's a really cool take on the Lost Zone engine deck. Does play a lot of switch, so it's pretty easy to get to, I guess, Sableye really fast. But it's a really cool idea, and I'm interested to see if this like Earth and Seal Lost Zone deck could be maybe tweaked a little bit and improved upon, because I do think the list is actually pretty sick, and the idea is kind of spicy for sure. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I think maybe if like Radiant Charizard was in here, it'd be a bit better. But I guess like the Radiant Greninja's in the deck, because you can use Earth and Seal Stone and Radiant Greninja against Genesect, and take 4 prizes against Genesect that way, which is pretty awesome. So really cool to see a deck like that do well. We got another Single Strike Lugia. This one finally is playing at the Cobalion, but as we're seeing, obviously, less and less Charizard. This one's actually a little bit more teched out. It's playing a Zinnia, a Roxanne, and a Lost Vacuum, so bit of a tech-heavy build. Roxanne's something that I've thought about playing in Lugia, because you do play the double Lumineon and you have Gift Energy, so finding Roxanne is not that hard to do in the late game. I just don't know if there's any matchup where like you specifically need it, but it's an interesting idea for sure. Beside the top 8, we do see more Guardies, Rapid Strike. I'm trying to see if there's anything interesting. I guess we can look at Arctina. But yeah, Arctina, no Superior. We're seeing the Arctina list cut the Superior now, which makes sense because we haven't seen a single Charizard deck in this video. And finally, we got the Battle Park Tournament, another fairly large tourney. The winner of the tourney was, of course, Gardevoir here. All basic energy with the Triple Worker. Once again, Triple Worker Guardy. Doing pretty good. This one went 9-1-1. We do see yet another Guardy in second place here. Different build. This one is not playing Triple Worker. It does play a Worker, though. Plays 3 stadiums. Yeah, kind of like towards the list, except like no Lumineon, no Force Seal Stone. Next up, we got the Charizard deck here. So finally, we got to see a Charizard deck here in a tournament. But yeah, this is the first Charizard deck we've looked at in this video, and that's proof that Charizard is starting to slip a little bit in terms of popularity and play, because people are realizing the deck is just overall a little bit more mid than people like. Now, this build does not play Arceus VSTAR. It's actually playing NTV and Force Seal Stone, but opting for just kind of straightforward more Charizard. But yeah, no Arceus, definitely an interesting way to play the deck. I don't think it's terrible, to be honest. This build does play a lot more, kind of stadium bumps. We do see the Vacuum, the Town Store, the Artisan. Not a whole lot of draw supporters in the deck. Only 3 Iono and 1 Research, but then 2 Arvins. But no Colress is interesting. I don't hate it. Yeah. Decent list. I mean, Charizard definitely is still kind of being worked on right now, right? We're still finding out what the optimal way to play it. We see yet another Colorless Lugia deck here in top 4. So yeah, Colorless Lugia really starting to make some rounds. I don't think Colorless Lugia is a bad play once again. The Charizard build is one that I'm a little bit more skeptical of. Like I said, I'm not sold on the Charizard build of Colorless Lugia, but I do think that the deck is inherently pretty strong right now in the meta. Then we got more Lost Tina. Again, we're seeing less and less Lost Tina do well, which is interesting. I don't think the deck's on the way out or anything, but we see another Charizard in top 8. This one is playing the Arceus. Actually, no Pidgeot in the deck, just going for Bibarel, but actually also playing at Path of Peak. So this one actually has Judge and Path in the list. Now, that's interesting. Another interesting inclusion is the Spongy Gloves, which is a card that I've thought about playing in Charizard decks, because it does allow you to do more damage to the Shampoo, which obviously is a big deal right now. So definitely an interesting way to play Charizard. I don't hate it. I think it's a cool little concept here, and yeah, I kind of like it. Yeah, Charizard, again, people are still figuring out the best way to play it. And we get in top 8, we see a Mew deck. Probably, like, if the Charizard deck got farmed. It's kind of funny. But then in top 8, we also have a Rapid Strike deck. So yeah, once again, Rapid Strike just doing pretty well in these online tourneys. We'll see if it translates well into Pittsburgh, but it does look like Rapid Strike right now is just doing really good, because it's just a good deck and pretty strong play. And was that the last deck in top 8? It was. Anything else outside of the top 8 here to look at? Not really. I don't think there's anything too crazy. And yeah, I think that's going to be it, folks, for today's video. We did look at some cool decks. We did see a really cool way to play Lost Zone. The Arc Regigigas deck was another really cool deck that I'm interested in. Again, a very tanky Arc deck is something that I think has potential. And honestly, with the Giratina not doing as well, like we've kind of been seeing a bit of a lack of Giratina, this could actually improve the potential for an Arc tank deck to actually do well again. So really cool to see that. I'm actually excited to see going forward, maybe if that becomes like a legit thing. But yeah, interesting list for sure. The Lost Zone deck obviously was another really spicy deck to see in top 8. This Earth and Seal Stone, a Lost Zone deck, is really spicy. And again, we'll have to see if this type of deck can do well in the future. But yeah, this is going to be it for the meta video here for these online tourneys. And again, a lot of these decks could be what we see happen in Pittsburgh. I think a lot of people were definitely playing in these online tourneys to do some last-minute Pittsburgh testing, as Pittsburgh is just around the corner. I'm excited for it, and I can't wait to see what does well at Pittsburgh and what people bring to the table. And I'm excited. But yeah, if you all enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me on the road to reaching 8K subs here on the second channel. Yeah, that'll be it. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all on another video here on the second channel soon. And hopefully see some of y'all in Pittsburgh. I will, of course, be at Pittsburgh, so I hope to see some of y'all there. And that'll be for me. Bye-bye.